I'm Haley Taylor, and you're listening to the Rough Draft Diaries. This week on the Rough Draft Diaries, you'll meet Steve Mockensturm. He's a designer and developer and co-founder at Madhouse Creative, a design company located in downtown Toledo. That's actually where I met with Steve, at Madhouse's headquarters. It's a fun space, too. It's very hip, very clean, very modern, and very much alive. The floors above us creak and moan with the hustle and bustle of designers stretching their legs. Once that sound subsides, then the air conditioner turns on, and it's quite loud. Steve, on the other hand, is quiet, somewhat soft-spoken and thoughtful as he takes long pauses before answering each question. And I had a lot of questions to ask because Steve does so many different things. First, and possibly the most obvious, he's an artist.
Well, it's really all over the place. I'm not one of those artists who has a real definable style, but I enjoy painting, and I did a little sculpture for a while. Glass blowing, which was really fun, but very expensive, as everybody will tell you. But I like to dabble in a lot of different things and just learn as much as I can about all the different techniques.
One of those techniques would be design, as in print design or website design, essentially the work Madhouse creates for its clients. It's a technique Steve learned back when this technology was first introduced.
Sure, I went to school to be an engineer, and we did a lot of drafting and electrical drafting on computers, and the Macintosh came around in 1984, and when I discovered I could bend type on a curve, that changed everything. So in high school it was either art or engineering, so I went to school to study engineering, but thanks to the computer, it's come full circle now, and I'm able to delve more into art and design.
On top of design, Steve is also a musician. He plays piano and guitar in various bands throughout Toledo. He's also a writer. Well, I think so. You see, I noticed 3 stories he published on the website Medium. It's where readers and writers can share their ideas within their own online community. Now, 2 of those 3 posts were about music, but the last one involved an important aspect of Steve's life. He wrote about a Good Friday service, and he talked about his faith. It's a topic Steve feels comfortable discussing, as I asked him to describe the connection between his personal faith and the artwork he creates.
Art is it's a solitary endeavor at the end, and it's very meditative, and it's a very interesting process where you kind of tap into what it's like to create something, and if you extrapolate that to God, you experience a piece of the divine when you create things. So that has really informed the art and the music over the last, 10 or 15 years. And the thing about faith was being raised Catholic, surrounded by all this imagery, that what appealed to me about that is all the different avenues of nonverbal communication that can take place in a sanctuary. Visual and musical, and it's a very sensory experience. So looking back, not understanding why that appealed to me, and I'm now getting a sense of why it did, because it's artistic. You're surrounded in the sanctuary by all kinds of art. Part of formation as a Christian is just realizing that your faith is your life. It's just a part of everything, whether you're making a meal or walking down the street with a friend or creating a piece of art. It's just always there, and you realize that you take that everywhere you go, in business and in recreation and in all of your relationships, that you are in service to the divine.
Maybe Steve makes it sound easy to take your faith with you wherever you go, that it just becomes instilled in the way you carry yourself, and that might be true. But I also noticed Steve deciding to share his faith with the world around him. Steve volunteers with the international organization Kairos Prison Ministry, in which men and women volunteer to bring love and forgiveness to prisoners and their families. While I'm not surprised to hear that Steve is involved with a form of ministry, I was curious to hear why this particular one. Why prison ministry?
The question always comes back to that you look after the people on the fringe. You look after the widows and the orphans and the poor and the minorities, and in our case, the incarcerated. So that was kind of a mission before I even got into the ministry. That's a mission. That's an injunction in Scripture to look after these people. So that's how I responded to that.
If you can believe it, we're reaching the end of this episode of the Rough Draft Diaries. So let's do a quick recap. So far, I've gathered that Steve is a designer, a developer, an artist, a musician, a writer, a volunteer in prison ministry, and he sometimes teaches at St. Andrew's Episcopal Church. I'm sure I've left something off the list, and I'm sure that list will only grow longer as time goes by. And I think that's exactly what Steve wants it to do.
Life is for living. I think it was Hunter S. Thompson that said, when you die, you should come skidding in, bruised and beat up and scarred and having lived a full life. So that's what I want to do. I want to come skidding in, having lived a full life and trying everything that I could.
For now, I'm Haley Taylor, and thanks for listening to this episode of the Rough Draft Diaries.